Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a Czech VZ58 bayonet for the Czech VZ58 rifle. There's an excellent book about these. That's Bodak Pro samopal Vz58. That's Czech for bayonet for submachine gun Vz58 because initially the Vz58 was designed as a submachine gun, just like the Soviets did with their AK rifles. Anyway, the manufacturer of this bayonet was CZ, and they made them from 1959 until 1984. My understanding is they're still making variations of this bayonet today, and they're still in use today as well. There are about 920,000 of these built, so a fair few. There's quite a few out there. They're pretty common in the collector's market. They go pretty cheap. And a little bit of history behind them. So after World War II, the Czechs developed their own self-loading rifle, which was the Vz52, in their own native caliber, which was 7.62 by 4.5, I think it was. That wasn't terribly popular with the Soviets. Under the Warsaw Pact, they wanted everyone to adopt the same rifles, same bayonets, everything the same. And the concession was made that they would adopt a rifle in the same caliber, but not the same rifle. So they'd make the Vz58 in 7.62 by 3.9, but they wouldn't adopt an AK variant and wouldn't adopt an AK bayonet. They had their own natives for each. Now, these bayonets saw constant refinement, and the Vz52 bayonet, was a folding bayonet, so this was a deviation back to a knife bayonet from a folder. But when these were initially designed, as you can see, it's got sort of like a particle board kind of handle. Now, there were so many issues with these handles and so many updates to this bayonet. I'll go through it very quick. So initially the grips were made of wood, and there weren't really any issues with those from what I can tell. Then when they moved to this particle board, it's bonded with some kind of resin and held together with epoxy, they just had all kinds of issues with it. So they had issues with it breaking, splitting, falling apart, just like the first AK bayonets, the Type 1s for the AKM, sorry. If a soldier tries to use it as a hammer, that's going to split, that's going to break, the whole thing's going to come apart. So there were a number of updates done to these, and because of all these updates, there's a lot of different variations of these bayonets you'll find. This is quite a later version here. So as I said, the first version will have the wooden grip. However, the next version will come across with the particle board handle, but does not have this lip at the bottom of the crossguard. It was almost flush. So that was the first of the updates to the bayonet. They added this little extension to the cross piece here. Then they found there were issues with the strength of the epoxy holding the particle board grip together, so they added 3 rivets. Those 3 rivets were replaced by 2 rivets, and you'll note here the tang only comes back to here. So that was deemed to be another feature of the blade or another feature of the handle that was pretty weak. So they actually ended up extending the tang the whole way down and actually protruding past the base of the handle. I don't have one of those, but that's the later production. This is sort of probably 3/4 towards the end of production. It's got the rivets. It's got 2 rivets. A couple other interesting bits and pieces about these. They actually issued some green vinyl scabbards with these, and the idea with the green vinyl scabbards is that they were easier to decontaminate radiation. So when Czech soldiers are wearing their radiation suits for biological warfare, biological chemical radiation warfare, they would wear the suits are made of a green vinyl, and they had scabbards made of the same, and it's just easier to clean them because the leather wasn't as good. Now, I might jump into the construction of the blade very, very quick. So it's quite a heavy blade for the size of it. It's quite thick. So it's sort of a Mauser style or profile of blade, but it's very, very thin, like the size of my finger. You compare that to your Mauser blades, usually twice as thick as this, so it's very, very small. It's got a small false edge at the top, a nice little spear point tip. This one's quite dull and not sharp at all. Nice little fuller on both sides of the blade, and then working down to the ricasso. The ricasso it's one solid piece essentially. So these are either forged or later on they were cast. So what do they call it? They called it investment casting. So the tang, the crossguard, the blade, it's all one solid piece, as you can see. Sorry, I'm not holding it in front of the camera for you. There we go, now we can see. Anyway, you've got your button in side of the crossguard here. It's a bit of an interesting button here because the button pushes through sideways, but drops a pin or a locking latch vertically when you press it sideways. So I haven't opened it up to see how they achieved that, but there's a bit of Czech magic in there. Mortises in the front of the handle instead of the rear, so there's no need to have a pommel. And yeah, other than that, it's just a particle board handle, which is not the nicest material. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but there you go. And the scabbard, there's not much to say about these, just leather scabbard with a loop for your belt. That's really all you can say about those. Now, in terms of markings on these, they've got two types of markings. So you've got your serial number, which I have here, and these serial numbers are quite different to anyone else. So you notice that there's a J in the middle of that number. So the way these work is you'll have 4 numbers and 1 letter for a serial number. And obviously you start with probably an A to the left and then 4 numbers. And then as you go up through serial numbers and you run out of letters, they increment the letter 1 across through the number. So the J in the middle of the number, that's 2 increments across of the letter. So I'm not sure what number in range that would make it, but it's reasonably high. Generally, when you get letters to in the second last number, that's towards the very, very end of production. So that's your serial number. It's a different way of doing it. I haven't seen it on anything else. I'll have to check out the VZ58s to see if the rifles have a similar system for serial numbers. I'm not sure, but these serial numbers do not match against rifles. So the other marking we have here is 218, and that's a factory control number. So there's all kinds of different factory control numbers, it's an absolute stack of different ones, and they're not always found on the ricasso. Sometimes they're found underneath the handle. Not very useful to collectors because you can't take the handles off to have a look at what's underneath. Now, apparently these are very, very well balanced knives, and apparently they make excellent throwing knives. From what I can tell, or been able to read online, people use these in throwing knife competitions, and sort of the really decent knife throwers out there will have quite a few of these, and they'll use them in competitions. So, quite a interesting little utility bayonet knife, throwing knife thing. Very, very small, but pretty cool. Anyway, guys, if I've missed anything or made any mistakes, comment below, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thanks for watching.